Welcome back to another exciting episode of Glitch, Grind, Glow, the show where our mission is to educate and break down the technology knowledge barrier while advocating for diversity in tech ownership, entrepreneurship, business, and innovation. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Be sure to hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks for continuing this journey with us. So it's no secret that there is a gross underrepresentation of women in tech. And despite decades of initiatives led by companies, nonprofits, and other organizations trying to increase the percentage of women in tech, our numbers are still hovering around 23%, particularly in the US. And inevitably, the first question I am always asked in any public speaking engagement is, how did I get into tech in the first place, despite not having a whole lot of women as tech role models to look up to? Next, I get asked, how do I navigate the challenges of being a woman in tech? So I thought I'd take a step back and remember where I was when I decided I really wanted to major in computer science. So today's episode is particularly meaningful as I'm joined by two of my amazing mentees, Hillel and Leanne. Hillel is a junior majoring in computer science at UMBC, and Leanne, who also studied at UMBC, majored in information systems and is now navigating her first full-time role in tech. All three of us share a special connection through a program known as CWIT, the Center for Women in Technology at UMBC, which has been a true game changer for our paths in tech. CWIT is more than a program. It's a support system designed to equip young women in technology with the tools that they need to succeed, mentorship, and confidence to succeed in a field where they're often the minority. We'll be diving into how CWIT shaped our journeys and explore the challenges these incredible women face as they step into the world of tech. So let's jump right in. What was more profound for me when I went into CWIT was that when I came out of high school, I didn't have a lot of experience with computers or technology. And it was kind of interesting that I chose to just go get a computer science degree because we didn't even own a computer in my house until I was almost 18, right? And it was like everything that I had experienced was at school, in high school, and there was very little hands-on experience at the high school that I was going at back in, the early 2000s. And so I got into UMBC, and I remember my first, Comp Sci 101. It was like 300 people in this class. And the teacher started with, here's the Hello World program, which is what most intro to programming classes start with. Yeah. And she was just like, type this into the screen and then run this command. And I was like, wait, let's take a step back. I don't even know how to open the DOS prompt. I don't know, what am I typing in? There was no explanation of text editors. And I needed that kind of education, just very simple. How do you open the DOS prompt? How do you, start certain applications, because I didn't have a computer when I was in high school. And so I was very much behind the curve, and CWIT was there for me to help give me that support that I needed, where, in class, I was expected to possess a certain level of knowledge that I didn't have. And CWIT definitely stepped in, gave me the tools and the resources and the people that I could work with to kind of bridge that gap, because I wasn't prepared for 101. Even though it's 101 and you think it's the introduction, it should be.
That's true.
They should tell you everything you need to know. And they didn't. It was definitely a learning curve. So I, hold CWIT very near and dear to my heart. And I think, I'd love to hear more about how you guys feel your experiences have been in CWIT and then outside of CWIT in your professional, whether it's internship or full-time opportunities. So let me talk to you guys about what made you interested in pursuing tech careers altogether. What was the impetus for you to decide that you wanted to pursue a tech degree? And I want both of you to answer it if you can, but we'll start with you.
Okay, so I really like the flexibility of it. So when I first was looking at different degrees, I like computer science. I like information systems because it's so flexible. If I were to graduate, I wouldn't be stuck doing one thing for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
There's so much I could do with that degree. And I chose information systems over computer science because there was more of a business/finance, not focus, but there was more of those types of classes. And I was interested in stuff like that. So we took accounting, we took economics, and I really enjoyed those classes. It just gave me like a whole big perspective on different things that I could get into.
Awesome.
So that's why I ended up choosing that. In addition, I'm also like more of a logical thinker. Like if you were to give me a problem, I like to solve it logically. And so that gave me the opportunity to use my skills to do that.
Awesome. And do you feel like that was a really good choice for you, knowing that you finished your whole degree? Does your degree give you the flexibility and the troubleshooting and
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
When I was doing my degree, I didn't know what I wanted to get into, and so when I was applying to internships, I was just applying to anything related to technology, and I happened to get into one related to cloud, and I never thought of myself
As
like
a
there was
cloud.
I never had that focus. Okay, I want to be in cloud, but that's the opportunity that came to me, and I really like it. And I know that after a couple of years, I could get into software engineering or data science or something
Right.
like that. So I'm like relaxed knowing that I'm not stuck in cloud forever.
Right.
I could change it up whenever I want.
Absolutely. I love that. So what about you? What sparked your interest in pursuing a tech degree?
I think for me, I was really lucky to grow up with, siblings that were already in the tech field, and so was my father. So that definitely had an impact on, my undergrad major.
Absolutely.
But I think going into college, I actually was thinking of something like global majors or something more, I guess, because I knew I wanted to go to law school and pursue a legal career. So I was leaning towards a political science major, but then I took a class in high school, AP Computer Science, and I loved it.
Yeah.
The professor was just really great, and it developed my love for problem solving.
Right.
So it felt natural choosing it.
Yep.
And then I ended up learning about, the legislature that's needed in the computing field, especially now that, new AI is coming up.
Yep.
And
And we will definitely dig into that.
and it's just, I think the law tends to try to catch up to like technology and newer things. It happens, I guess it tries to solve a problem rather than think ahead, like think about a problem before it comes. So I think having that technical background will definitely help me with that aspect.
Absolutely. And so do you know, and I know it's so early, right? You have tons and tons of time to figure it out. But if you were to tailor kind of some of your learning and your experiences, what you would want to do ultimately with your degree, leveraging both technology and law.
Ooh.
And that's okay. It's a very open-ended question, but I just think it's so interesting because a lot of people don't have that perspective of like, well, what's in the realm of possible? That was when you and I met and we started talking, I was like, oh, that's a really cool concept, but I don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Right?
I think I actually tend to be like a planner. So I have like a 5-year, 10-year plan, but I think CWIT kind of like they bring in a lot of people, in the industry that have experience and hearing their journey through life and how, like, I always hear people say, oh, I ended up doing this, but going in, I never thought I would do that.
Absolutely.
And it gave me...
The cloud conversation, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it gave me some perspective on my future and, in that, I guess my planning nature, just to take a step back and really enjoy what the world has to offer or what comes my way kind of thing.
I love that. And I think we don't, and I think as, women technologists, right, we have very similar characteristics in terms of we tend to be very organized, very good at execution, planning, forecasting. And so it's very easy for us to forecast our future. And it's a very bad idea at the same time because if our plan was, oh, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get this degree, I'm going to get out and I'm going to work for Google. And then after I work for Google for this many years, then I'm going to start every time we miss one of those milestones, it can almost be like an identity crisis, right, for us. And so I think, you know, as technologists, we're very good at like breaking down the problem and then attacking. And then it's like sometimes you just have to sit back and experience and try new things, right? Things that weren't on your 5-year plan, you know, because an opportunity was presented to you versus, you know, this is my plan and this is how I'm going to execute. And that's kind of like what you were saying with the whole cloud, like that wasn't at the forefront of your mind when you were drafting your plan, but you're here, you're learning, and you're like, maybe and you like it, and then you're like, well, maybe I'll try something else, right? Versus getting stuck into one thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And do you feel like, you know, in this space, as you guys have navigated like internships, were your internships or your work experience, were those things that you had planned, or were they things that were opportunities more that you had to consider versus like this was your exact plan?
I mean, getting an internship was definitely a plan for me. I transferred from community college to University of Maryland, or UMBC, and I needed a work experience. I needed something on my resume because I was about to graduate.
Right.
I had like 2 more semesters left. So I was just applying, and I was just going to take whatever I could get. And the opportunity I got was amazing.
Yeah.
To be frank, like I got the offer in March, and the end of the semester was in May. So it was like super late, but okay, it turned out to be perfect.
Yeah.
It was a great team. It was a great opportunity. And that's how I got my full-time job. So that's what happened. Yeah.
I love that. So let me, you mentioned something that's very interesting to me, the stress surrounding the whole internship paradigm, like when you're in school, right? So before you're full time, and it's beautiful that you were able to transition from internship to full time. But let's talk about that. Like how stressful is that experience for you guys?
So,
like
so stressful.
What do you think what are the points that make you feel the most, or that at that time made you feel the most anxious? Like, and we'll start with you, and then we'll go to you. So what do you think?
I think I was talking to you throughout the process, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of them were like, oh, what other experience do you have? And I'm just like, what do you mean? I'm trying to get that experience. Like, that's why I'm applying. But yeah, so I think people tend to say, okay, like apply, right. Which I definitely agree. You have to apply to a lot. But also, I think it keeps getting more competitive. And it's like you just have to stay on top of it. And it's during the school semester too where you have to apply, and that can get a little
You're
challenging.
In the middle of doing work, and you're also trying to apply, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pressure, right? Do you ever feel like, you know, you're hearing people around you and other people have secured internships, and it's like, you know, what's going on? Why am I having difficulty? Things like that.
Yeah.
That's another pressure point, right?
Exactly. And I think LinkedIn added to that.
The people are like, guess what? I'm starting a new position. And you're like, oh my God. You know?
It's like every week or every day, it felt like someone was posting something saying, oh, I just accepted this opportunity at this place. And I'm like, okay, nice. But I think that just added more pressure to it. And I felt like I had to catch up. So I think when I finally got this internship, I was so happy.
Like, you were just like relieved.
Relieved, exactly.
Yeah.
And thankfully, like, I have this amazing opportunity, and that like lets me, I guess, explore both my interests, and it's just a great environment.
Yeah. Absolutely. What about you? Like, what do you think? What pressure and were you maybe putting on yourself, or felt like maybe others outside you may have been putting? Like, what type of pressure points did you have when you?
I agree with Hillel. It's so competitive, and you could tell by going to the job fairs. It was so busy, and you're like, all of these people, right? Internships. Like, how am I gonna get one? Like, who am I compared to all of these people?
Right.
Like, what makes me stand out?
Yeah.
So it was just like so stressful, and sometimes when I went to talk to the people at the job fair, you get to know like what they're kind of looking for. At the same time, sometimes they're just like, oh, just apply online. So then it's like, well, then what am I doing here? Like, what is the point? Like, why am I spending 3 hours
coming here to talk to you?
Coming here in this huge crowd, talking to you, waiting in line just for you to tell me to scan the QR code and apply online.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Let me just apply by myself. Let me go through LinkedIn. Let me go through Indeed. Let me go through Handshake, which is the UMBC job listing thing that they have. And so I was just, at first I was picky, and then I reached a point where I was like, you know what? I do not care.
Right.
Apply. I literally did not care. I just started applying to everything that had the word technology to it. I was like, you know what?
It doesn't matter. I'll figure it out later.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. I got like an interview from Morgan Stanley, and then when they were interviewing me, I was like, wait, that's actually not what I'm looking for. It was like for an operations thing. I was like, that's not actually, thank you for the interview, but
and you could definitely be graceful and be like, I gracefully declined because this is not what I actually
They didn't give me
wanted.
an offer. They wanted me to do a second interview. I was like, I just didn't do it. I was like, that's not what I'm looking for. Let me find something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, super, super competitive. They want people with experience, which I didn't have at the time. So I would just try to like talk about my projects that I've been doing and hoping that would count as experience. And I guess that's what happened.
Yeah.
Because they found something in me that they liked. So that's how I got my
Absolutely. It to me, it's an interesting space. And I think, CWIT and a lot of, programs at universities do a really good job of trying to help prepare you guys for these conversations. And so that's really wonderful that you just have a lot of resources, but it's literally just apply until something hits or something sticks, right? And because everybody at this stage in the game all have had, you're all very comparative. If you're a junior, then you come with these classes. If you're a senior, you come with these classes, right? So like employers know that. And I think it's just, depending on size of programs that they're staffing for, that'll dictate how many people they're going to hire. And then they just kind of go through the copious amounts of applications that they have and kind of down select. And so it's actually very interesting because everybody is very critical of themselves when they're going through this process. But the process is very much like a numbers game, right? How many people applied by the deadline and then how many can I accept? They're not really like comparing you guys that closely in general because they're like, I don't expect anybody to really come with a lot of knowledge or experience. Now, if somebody happens to, they'll spend more time looking at that application and deciding, to bring that person in. But most of everybody's in the same boat, right? Very little experience. So that's like pressure. It's just a lot because it's a numbers game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so for you guys, from your perspective, you've said something that was very interesting about like going to these career fairs and people are just telling you to apply online. Did that deter you at all from even wanting to work for some of those companies where maybe the approach didn't seem as personal or as...
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Because I kind of get it. Like there's 20 people in line constantly for 3 hours. Like I get that they're not going to be able to talk to each person in like taking their time and talk to them individually. But at the same time, like, why are you here if you're not going to talk to us and get to know us?
I agree.
So I see both sides.
Yeah.
But I didn't take it in a negative way.
Okay.
What happened was the second time there was a job fair, I just didn't end up going. What I did is I looked at the list of employers who were there, and then I just applied through them. Like, okay, I saw that Morgan Stanley is there or APL or whatever. So then I just applied through their sites instead of wasting time and going.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to ask you guys, since you've done a lot of interviews, and I know that being a part of the CWIT program, you guys probably do a lot of networking and interacting, right, at the different activities that they have for you. And as women, women in tech, we are, a minority, right? And so do you ever have issues with, going into a room and kind of like, how do you build your confidence when you go into a room to speak to someone, whether it's an interview, whether it's a networking event? What strategies do you guys have to build your confidence in those moments? Especially because you're like this internship discussion, you don't have a lot of experience. So what do you do to kind of psych yourself up?
Me first?
Yeah. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I think I just like to stay true to myself. Like, at the end of the day, they're either gonna like me or they're not gonna like me. Like, I should be myself, talk about, like, who I am and what I like to do. I'm not gonna lie or pretend to be someone I'm not, because they're gonna figure out at the end, like, okay, what she said in the interview is not how she's doing right now. Like, I don't wanna do anything, like, weird or anything.
Right.
So I want to stay true to myself. I like to practice beforehand, like a couple of interview questions myself, practice my answers, have like notes of like, okay, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, this is what I like about the company. I think a good question, even like asking questions at the end of your interview, I know that that's really important. So I like to like look up the company and find stuff to talk about or ask about. So during my T.R. Price interview, I asked about their business resource groups and like showed interest, like, oh, like I saw that you have multiple business research groups. How does that work? How do you get into them? Just to show that you're interested in as well. It's like you're not just looking for a job, but you're looking to be part of their community as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Those are really good strategies to feel, going in feeling knowledgeable about the company, as knowledgeable as you can be without having worked there, right? But that always keeps like, people will look at you in a high regard because they know you took time to learn about the company or to learn about things that are happening there. And so that definitely can do a boost of confidence for you. What about you? Do you have anything any strategies you employ to feel more confident in a moment where you're going and you maybe don't know who you're going to meet or who you're going to talk to?
I definitely agree with Leon.
Yeah.
I think having knowledge about, I guess, the people or the company definitely helps. Makes you feel a little bit more prepared and like ready to talk to people. At least for me, it does. And I also like to take some time within the environment just to feel comfortable before approaching people. And I think that calms my nerves.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think those are the two that I could think of.
Yeah, those are good ones. Those are really good ones. I think, being yourself and being authentic, like you said, is honestly the key to kind of presenting yourself, in any room, right? It's coming in and saying, these are the skills that I do have and the knowledge that I do possess. And then anything else along those lines, I'm super confident that I can acquire, right? And that allows you to say, honestly, when you don't have an experience in something, but that you're willing to take on the challenge to gain that experience and kind of pursue the gaps that you have in your knowledge base, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good way to look at things. So, again, let's talk about being women in technology, right? And I know that sometimes, of course, being at CWIT, you guys have a lot of women and men who are allies of women in technology. Have you had any experiences though where you felt like, kind of the odd person out in the room, or felt like you didn't quite fit in the space when it comes to technology? Because you're surrounded really by a great community at CWIT, but have you had to step out of some of those spaces and then realize, like for me, when I went to my first computer programming classes, when they started to get smaller, I started to notice as I got higher. So in like the 300 levels and the 400 levels, I would be like one of 3 women in the room, right? And the rest of the class, like I remember distinctly in my automata theory class, I was the only woman in that classroom at the 400 level computer science programming. Have you guys encountered any of those experiences, whether, at school or in your professional environment, where you're the one of very few women in the room or the only women in the room?
Definitely.
You have? Okay.
For me, it was the other way, actually. Starting off, it was a big crowd of people, and there were like only, I think, 4 women, including myself.
Yeah.
Like that was like my first computer science class.
Yep.
I don't think I noticed it until, I guess, one day in class. My friend was like, oh, she pointed it out. And I was like, oh, wow, that's true.
Right.
But I think as I'm taking like higher level computer science classes, I think I see, like, as the numbers dwindle down, I see more women and like more representation. So that's great.
That is good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting that you're seeing the reverse paradigm. And I wonder, Like, part of me now needs to go unpack that and figure out like how that's happening, right? Because I think that's really awesome.
Yeah.
It might be a shift in culture. It might be a shift in how we are promoting technology for young girls and women, and
Definitely.
looking at the landscape that way.
Yeah, I think organizations like CWIT and others like Girls Who Code, they're great organizations now that, promote women in technology, and I think that's definitely having an effect, and it's like changing
Yeah.
things. It's great.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, talking about CWIT, right? Can you guys remember a time where CWIT really helped you prepare to like either something that was impactful? If you look back and you had to boil down kind of the things that you learned from CWIT and those experiences, was there any one thing that stuck out in your mind as being like the, most impactful to help you overcome a problem or help you network, anything like that? Like, what do you think was like the most impactful experience for you from the CWIT perspective?
Do you want to go first, or should I?
You can go first.
Yeah.
I think of one.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I always hear people in CWIT talk about networking, and I definitely agree. Networking is very important. I think I heard someone from CWIT say there are so many job opportunities that are not posted, but
Okay.
only found through networking.
Yeah.
And so that really changed my perspective. And I think it was a high percentage. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And so I think they also going to CWIT events and being around professionals and people in the industry really helped me get comfortable in that space, and really, I guess, be comfortable advocating for myself as well, because they do encourage women and allies to advocate for women in technology. So
Yeah.
it's been really a great thing to learn.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What about any new skills that you guys, was there anything that maybe you didn't have exposure to before CWIT, and so they helped you gain any new skills? I'll say for me, the example that I have is I had never done any real public speaking. And so, coming out of school, I had ran to be class president or secretary or something like that. And I actually did office. I think I was the vice president or something when I was in high school. And that was the only time I had done a big speech in front of a bunch of people. And so I got really good at CWIT of talking in front of large groups of people, because there was a lot of, I was the first cohort. And so there were a lot of opportunities for us to get up and kind of show what we do and talk about CWIT in front of other groups of people, right? And so I got really good at public speaking because of CWIT. If it had not been for CWIT, I would eventually probably have gotten those skills, but I was able to get up and talk about myself and, introduce myself to a room. They helped me figure out my whole 2-minute elevator pitch about who I was. And that was the first time I'd ever done that was with CWIT. And I had to get up and introduce myself. And all of the scholars had to do it. And we all got really good at okay, well, yours was long-winded. And we gave each other feedback and kind of helped each other tailor down to the things that really resonated with the room. Was there anything that it was your first time kind of going through some of those moments with you guys for when you came to CWIT?
Definitely the elevator pitch, like you mentioned. I've never heard of that until CWIT, and then we practice it all the time. But another thing was tips for negotiation.
Okay.
They had a little session about that.
Yeah.
And we learned how to negotiate, things to say, things not to say, and that was really informative because for my internship, I didn't even try to negotiate.
Right. You were I'll take it.
I'll take it. No, literally. Exactly. So then it was good to have that session, learning about, talking about the total compensation package. Not only just, your salary, but, what benefits do you get, and making sure that those benefits are something that you're looking for as well. So there was just, a lot of things that I learned about through that tips of negotiation session that I liked.
That's really good. We didn't have that. That would have been very helpful for me when I was navigating my first job post-college. And I think it's key because a lot of times we don't advocate for ourselves as much as we should. We're just I'm grateful to have the job. Whatever you decided was probably what is in the realm of what makes sense. And so sometimes you do have to have those conversations even if you're not successful. So
I agree. Yeah.
that's really good. Okay, so what about I know that, you guys obviously are my mentees through the CWIT program, but I'm sure there's been other mentorship opportunities that you have had over the years where I'm assuming, I don't know, did you guys have mentors before?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of.
We
Okay.
had
like
peer
informal?
mentors,
Yeah, we had peer
peer
mentors.
mentors.
Yeah.
Cindy,
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good.
mentor.
So what do you guys think about mentorship? Like, what are the impacts of mentorship, and what do you think is, well, after we talk about what do you think about mentorship and how do you feel about mentorship, I'm going to ask you, what do you think is makes a good mentor, right? And so you could be honest. If you're like, Candace is a bad mentor because she reschedules all the time, I will say that is one of my things I'm working on because my day
Candace is
ends up
great.
being crazy. But okay, so let's take a step back. And how do you guys feel about mentorship, and what do you think are like the keys to having a good mentorship relationship? And we'll start with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like mentorship. I think it's a great thing. Like, even before CWIT, like, I never really... I knew that their mentors existed, but I always thought it was, like, okay, a friend of a friend. Or
Right.
my dad's coworker or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that you could find, like, mentors
Yep.
through, like, school or even, like, where you work and stuff like that. I think it's a good opportunity to ask real-world questions without, like, feeling pressured, like
Right.
asking I might ask you something that I'm afraid to ask my manager.
Yeah.
It's because of like the different pressures from both people, you know what I mean? Yeah, like if I'm ever struggling with something, I could text you, call you, or whatever, and I could just get like a real honest answer from you that I know, like you have no bias, like you'll just tell me the truth because nothing's gonna affect you.
Right.
Like you're just trying to help me out. Like compared to my manager, she's gonna say something that's for her best interest or
Yeah.
for the best interest of the team. So just like real honesty is what I like from mentors.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Even if internal company mentorship, even if it's not like somebody's not purposely trying to be biased, if they know the dynamics or the culture of the company, then they might make a recommendation that's like for how you succeed here, right? But really what you might be seeking is how do you succeed, as yourself in technology or in the space. And the answer might be leave this company, right? And if like, it's not like they're purposely trying to be biased, but there's an inner built-in bias when you get a mentor a lot of times at work with you because they're trying to keep you at the company. They're trying to figure out how to grow you within the company. And sometimes the answer is outside the company, right? So it's not even purposeful.
Exactly.
And that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think, from your perspective, was the value that you've received from having a mentor?
I think seeing someone else's journey and really like, I guess it changes your perspective, it definitely changed mine because, and like also, I think you are a great person, like you're doing such amazing things, right? And so I think it's great to have someone like a woman in technology who you can look up to. I think that's really important to have like I guess what I said before.
Yeah.
Someone to look up to it's really great because it shows you that you can get there. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like a role model.
Yeah.
Type thing.
And I have mentors. So I'm always looking at, my next level and where I want to be in my future perspective. My mentors are obviously like, where I'm trying to get, right? And a lot of times they are providing that same kind of advice and perspective that I'm providing to you guys. So it's like I'm learning from them, you guys are learning from me, and then at a certain point, I'm going to expect you guys, right, to start being mentors because there's a lot of value that you guys can provide. It's the whole reason why we're here today talking is because there's a lot of people out there that don't have access to wonderful programs like CWIT who will match you with a mentor, and they're kind of just in college. And it's like, unless someone comes to them and says, hey, I'm starting a mentorship program. Do you guys want a mentor? Where are they going to find mentorship, right? And so this is the kind of those moments where it's like, hopefully there's a podcast or hopefully there's a forum where you can go and kind of get some of that care and feeding that somebody would get if they had a mentor.
Yeah. I think it also forces you to, admit when you need help or like ask for help,
That's a
get
good
advice. I think I'm not really good at doing that.
Yeah.
And so having someone check up on me and, just ask for progress has just been like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
What would you say? Like, what's your take on it?
Yeah.
It's been great.
Absolutely. It's a good sounding board to have and just like you know, and I've even had moments with some of my mentees in the past where it's like, okay, this happened. What do you think about this? And like, it's a different perspective, right? Because it's like, oh, well, you know, that's either to me, it's not a big deal, or it is a big deal, or like, how do we navigate this space together? And they could get that opinion from multiple people and then kind of make decisions about what they want to do for their next steps.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I have a lot of mentor relationships that are not formal. And, you know, I always feel like if I could just weigh in and be an alternative perspective, then I'm helping, right? And so I think that's a beautiful thing, and like that there are networks that exist that'll help, you know, facilitate that for you guys. So let me ask you this: what do you think makes someone a good mentor? So if we are like talking to our audience, right, and you're like, I want to be a mentor, what do you guys think it takes to be a good one?
I think having time to answer their questions.
Yeah.
Like if you're not answering or giving like short little answers,
Yeah.
like it defeats the whole purpose. Like
Right.
you should care about your mentee. Like, okay, she needs help. Okay, let me set aside some time to walk her through whatever she's going through. So just like showing that you care, having time and showing that you care, I think is a good quality.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that's important. I know that a lot of people mean to have time and mean to make time, right? Like they have all the intentions in the world, but like work comes at you fast, life comes at you fast, and you never know what time is going to look like. So it's like clear commitment to taking on that is to say that I'm going to make time for these people and for our shared experience, whatever that looks like. What do you?
Life definitely, sorry, but
No, you're good.
life definitely does happen. So,
Yeah.
like, if you need to reschedule or, oh, sorry, I couldn't make it to our meeting today, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But at least you're making the effort.
Right.
Which is, like, that's all we want.
Yeah.
Just the effort.
We've had a few reschedules over the years, and I'm always like, I need to be there. So I completely get like, you know, being flexible, and I think that's beautiful that you guys are flexible with me. And it's like once we get that time together and we have those conversations, they're always like super meaningful and impactful. And I even learn from you guys, so I think that's actually really cool. I'm learning things, you know, about the space and about, you know, the things that you guys are navigating just by hearing your stories and hearing the things that you're pursuing or trying. So I also think that's really cool because, you know, it's been a long time since I've been out of school, and so things are different, right? Interview process is different. Internship, like securing the internship process, like scan the QR code. That did not exist when I was going to career fairs when I was younger. I was handing people like an actual piece of paper resume. It wasn't even like a digital resume. There was no like, you know, apply at this online application and it goes through the automated tracking that like a lot of companies had automated tracking systems when I was applying. So it's like I'm learning the new way of doing things, and I think that's really cool. So what do you think it takes to like have a good mentor?
I definitely agree with like, you know, just someone who cares and shows effort is good, but also like someone who can be honest and have those hard conversations. You know, it's good to have someone that's calms you down, but also you want someone that pushes you as well.
Right.
So having a good balance between those two is really important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, that's a good one. I think that's interesting because, you know, as women and we tend to be labeled the nurturers, right? And that, you know, can be a stereotype, right? But it's like if you don't have someone that's also going to say like, all right, there's obviously something going on, right? Let's address the issue or the deficiency versus just being like, it'll be okay. It'll all work out, right? Like you want to do that to encourage people. You don't want people to quit, but you also want to be like, there's probably a strategic way that we can attack this so that it improves your chances or your odds of achieving whatever you're trying to achieve, right? And so you have to balance both, you know, comfort and empathy with, okay, here's like real world strategy to tackle or accomplish whatever we're trying to accomplish. That makes a lot of sense. And then like, so outside of your mentor, like what other networks do you guys like have that you are trying to build, right? Because I know this is new. You're new in, you know, navigating a career. You're new in the internship space. But are there any other networks that you guys use or support systems?
Networks. I've been trying to use LinkedIn to build my network.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't really post. I don't use it as much as I should.
Right.
But I think I'm trying to get into it. There's like the pre-law society at UMBC that's also helpful.
Okay.
There's a great person that's running it right now. So
Yeah.
she's been helpful as well with my, helping me navigate the
Right.
legal side of things.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And then I know that you and I have talked about the employee resource groups and like what is available with your company. Have you delved into any of those yet? Do you?
I've been going to meetings here
Okay,
and there. Yeah, like especially for
Yeah.
like Mosaic, which is like the diverse group, like
Yeah.
like African Heritage Month or Hispanic Heritage Month, stuff
Yeah.
like that. They have a bunch of different meetings.
That's really good.
So, yeah, it's really interesting. I like seeing the different perspectives. But like joining another network, I haven't really made progress in that. I probably should be. When you mentioned LinkedIn, I agree. I should be using LinkedIn more. I think it's a good way to expand your network. But that's something I'm working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea. I think one of the things that we talk about is like to build a new network or to explore new networks, it should be organic and it should be something that you're actually interested in. I used to have a friend who would like join everything and I'd be like, you don't even care about half of this stuff that you join. But it was like, I'm just trying to build my network. And I'm like, that's so like inauthentic, right? You're joining, employee resource groups that you don't even really identify with or don't really care about the mission that much. So you're in it, your name is listed, but you're not going to the events, you're not going to the meetings, you're not participating outside the community. And I mean, that is a strategy. I don't want to say it doesn't work. Like, I'm sure they've made some connections inadvertently that maybe have benefited their career. But for me, my networks are really things that like I go to work, 40 plus hours a week. I want to give my time in this space. And so those are the types of places that I really influence and build networks in. So, for me and in particular at my company, I'm a part of it's a program called Belong, but it's for the Black, population at my job. And like, they really are catering to the community and doing like a lot of community outreach. So they'll engage with like Black Girls Who Code. They'll send us, to Afrotech or whatever the different, conferences that we might want to prioritize each year. And like that is meaningful to me. And it's something that I like. It doesn't get old. It doesn't get tiring, right? And I really feel like I can focus my energy. And so that's like one of the networks that I try to use to build relationships. And it really does work. And I know sometimes people are like, well, I mean, community outreach is great. But what ends up happening is, people leave the company, they go different places. And then all of a sudden you're getting calls where you're like, hey, I have a role over here in my organization at another company, and I could only think about you and like how meaningful doing some of this work that we did together before was, and they'll reach out to you. So it's like networking for the sake of just like meeting new people takes time to actually for you to realize the benefits of it, right? It sometimes could be 10 years in the game. I know my original CWIT mentor owns a company called Early Morning Software. And when I was like trying to decide if I wanted to do a huge career change, I was able to just message her 10 years later and say, hey, what do you got going on in the space that's, external to like defense? Because that's where I was primarily situated. And she had a lot of opportunities. And I was like, that's crazy because her and I met 10 years ago. She was my mentor 10 years ago. We probably hadn't talked to each other in 6 years, right? And I was able to just phone her up and be like, hey, I got this going on. Here's, what I'm looking for. And she was like, here, talk to this person, talk to that person. I have a role here at my company. And because of her network, right, she knew a lot of other VPs and SVPs at other companies. And so she was able to turn me over to those people and say, hey, I have a really smart lady who's looking for a job. What do you guys got in your organization? And so it's like, I know, the benefits of networking right now, because you guys are so new in the space that you're in, is like you're making the connections. And then later on, you'll be able to cash in on them. And it'll be actually really cool to see that, few years from now as you guys get further into your career.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's a great strategy. I think like going back to if you don't fit into a group, or I think you can also just find someone who is doing something that you're interested in and then reach out to them.
Yeah.
And I think this has helped me because I reached out to someone. I was like, okay, I'm interested in, I think it was like research. I'm like, I'm interested in research.
Right.
I want to learn more. How do I get into it? Like, who are people that could help me with this?
Exactly.
And he just ended up giving me so many resources, like so many, sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
Like so many resources and other people that I can connect to, and reach like that could help me with what I'm looking for.
Yep.
So that's another strategy or way to network as well.
Yeah. And that's also like, organic, right?
Yeah.
It's people that you know and networks that you're familiar with, like the things that you guys have done in them together. So it's like it's organic, it's not forced, it's not pushed, right? And I think that's really important, is like, organic relationships that make sense.
And you'd be surprised how like people are willing to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is true. That is very surprising how people are like, yeah, I mean, I know this person here. Let me just broker an introduction. And there can be some type of like, beautiful relationship that gets born out of that. Even if they don't have a job today, it might be something, that you guys can work on together in a few years or in the future.
Yeah.
So one of the last things that I wanted to talk about with you guys was understanding how we get more women into technology, right? It's a very open-ended question, right? But I find that, it starts with engaging younger girls, right? And to figuring out how we might make technology more appealing or more interesting, all the way up to, once we're in the tech field, how do we support the women that are here, that are matriculating out of college? I have a lot of ideas for, once you're in your careers, how do we strengthen, the support that's around women? But like, what are your thoughts? Like, what are some things that you guys think might be helpful or beneficial to getting more women in tech all across the whole pipeline? What do you think?
I think media representation is a big one.
Okay.
Showing more powerful women in technology or women in higher roles like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really big one, because you don't see many, like if you were to ask me to name some famous women in technology, I have to think about it.
Right.
But I could tell you Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg.
Right. I agree.
So we know a lot of male people or male in technologies, but we don't know any strong females in technologies.
That is very
true. So we need media representation. We need to talk about the successful women more. And then, spread their stories, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know a few women CEOs, but it's just because, the CEO of my company is a woman, right?
Oh,
and
nice.
so like, it's one of those things. And she, prior to her, there was a man that was the CEO for a very long time. And so when he left office, that's who he nominated. She was the COO prior to taking over the role as the CEO. But it's like, it's rare. It's super rare. Like I could think of a few others, but it's like, the popular companies, the companies that have big, huge reputations. Yeah, they're all male led.
They're all men. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So media representation, kind of spotlighting and highlighting those women, executives, because it doesn't just have to be CEOs, but it's like anybody that's in power in a technology realm. Either they're the in a CTO organization or a technology company. I think that's a good idea to like have more representation showing it there, right?
It will motivate you. Like when you see those women in power, like it motivates you to
right.
get
That it's I can do it.
technology. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
real. It's something that's achievable, right? Okay, that's a good one. What do you think?
I definitely agree. Like just more media representation. I think even like in movies or shows, there's like that, you need to break down that stereotype of like when you think of a computer science, like a computer guy, it's like this white nerdy guy, doing computer in his basement.
Right.
And I think we definitely need to break that stereotype and have more just women, just enjoying computing and enjoying what they're doing. And I think that will attract, a younger audience as well.
Yeah.
Like, and then throughout the journey, having support systems like CWIT and other organizations, I think it's really helpful. And it, like, having that support and people to rely on and go to when you need help really helps. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think what about like, society or cultural? Do you think there's anything that like changes how women are represented it based on like norms and impressions of like cultural or societal norms that kind of impact any of that. So I get that there's like a lack of representation. Do you think there's anything as it relates to like, well, I'll give an example, right? I do personally feel like, you know, when we're interviewing and hiring for candidates, we tend to like gravitate towards resumes that have very strongly worded statements. So things like, you know, I led or I engaged or I did certain things. There's certain verbs that tend to represent more dominant personalities and more, you know, leadership, strong leadership and things like that. And so one of the things that I've been trying to do is use a bias software to screen resumes for job recs, when I put out job recs that say that I want somebody who's, you know, led the charge for something, right? We take those types of words out of those job recs so that you're not targeting only people with very dominantly worded resumes and things like that. So that's one of those, like, right? So from the perspective of being women technologists, we don't always write our resumes in ways that are using those very like aggressive or assertive, you know, terminologies. And so sometimes our resumes get kicked out of like applicant tracking systems, or the people reading the resumes are looking for certain types of verbiage or technology or terminology. And so they're like prioritizing a resume that's more like softly worded or has more like collaborative terms, things that are like, you know, facilitated, right? Or, you know, anything that sounds like we're trying to like get, you know, people in a room to brainstorm or something like that. Those tend to be overlooked because they want people that are dominant and leaders. And as women, sometimes when we're writing our resumes, we lean more heavily towards collaborative terms, collaborative statements versus like, I'm the leader and I was the sole person responsible or instrumental or I drove certain things, right? So that's a societal or cultural thing, right? Both us writing the resume and also the people who are reading the resumes have some kind of cultural bias towards those types of phrases or terminology. Do you guys see anything like that, like in your experience, that society kind of puts pressure on us as women technologists that might keep girls from pursuing like tech degrees or anything like that?
I don't know.
It's a broad question. It's one of those things like social or cultural implications of entering the tech field. And one of the other things that I find a lot when I go talk to like you really young kids is when you're asking them like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or, you know, do you guys know anything about technology? They tend to like the girls tend to have less focus of parents trying to get them interested in technology, whereas the boys tend to have a lot more focus of like, I want to be a computer programmer, or I want to be this, or I want to be that. It's sometimes happens at that level where we're handing the boy some type of like computer game and we're handing the girl something different, right? It not necessarily, it could be, you know, arts or medical or doctors or things like that, but it's not always the computer game that they're handing the girls.
I feel like Gen Z doesn't have that issue.
That might be
I'm
true.
thinking about it. I don't know if you agree, but I think like our age group, we don't really have those like gender norm issues.
That's good. I mean, that's definitely new.
I think I agree.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of an example. I can't really think of anything.
Yeah.
I think we know what we want and we don't care what other people think. Like if I like technology, like I'm not gonna let society stop me from applying. Like I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
I want to do what I want to do.
And that's really good. I think that's another thing is like another point, you know, nature versus nurture, right? If you have parents that are younger in our society who are more like, I'm gonna let my kid choose whatever toy they want,
was my
right?
experience, yeah.
Versus, well, because she's a girl, I'm gonna buy her pink clothes and I'm gonna buy her Barbies, and because he's a boy, I'm gonna buy him blue clothes and I'm gonna buy him trucks, right? And so I think that might be a transition in society at the point that you guys are at. And I'm on the cusp. I'm older than you guys, but I'm not completely like, I'm not, 30 years older than you. So I'm in that weird gray area where it was like, yes, women technologists exist. We just don't know them, right? And so I didn't have a lot of people that could help me on my journey. Whereas I think now we're in this space where it's like, you guys can do whatever you want and just tell me what you want, and I'll make sure that you guys get the access to the information and to, you know, whatever is available out there. So I definitely think that might be a shift in, you know, like you said, generations and how parents, you know, are opening up access to things. So I actually think that's really cool that you guys didn't have a lot of those experiences. Yeah. So last thing that I wanted to touch on was just like, if we could build something together as a group to kind of inspire, you know, people to get into STEM technology, is there anything that you think would be like instrumental in helping kind of spearhead that, particularly with like young girls?
That's a great question.
Yeah. And it's okay if we don't have anything necessarily, but like that is one thing that I want to challenge, like the world, right? Is we have a lot of resources, we have a lot of knowledge, and it's like, how do we get to that place where we are increasing the numbers, right? One of the statistics that is pretty significant is if you look at careers like women in technology post degree, right? Our numbers have not grown drastically, but we have more education, more support systems, more programs that are catered towards those. So what is maybe happening in between, you know, the stage where we're getting out of college and then we're beginning our careers, right? So is there programs, and that's more like a call maybe to the audience to like think about what could impact, you know, the continuation of growing the pipeline of women technologists and engineers. So that's something we'll continue to talk about in our conversations, because I really, what's important to me is to be impactful to the world and to like increase and empower, you know, women technologists. When I go into a lot of rooms still to this day, I'm one of, you know, 3 or 4 women, and then I'm literally the only Black woman in a lot of the rooms that I'm sitting in. And so I want to figure out a way to continue that charge and to kind of continue that, you know, that journey for other women technologists. Awesome. So we're at the end, and I just want to know, is there anything that you guys, you know, any parting words, any final pieces of advice? I think the audience that will watch today could be all over the board, but I really want to cater to young women who are even thinking about pursuing degrees in technology and ultimately technology careers. Any like one piece of advice that you'd leave with those girls?
I think like imposter syndrome is definitely true, and it does happen, but I think just like focusing on your goal and just trying to achieve it will definitely help.
Yeah.
And like just focus on that, and don't try to like compare yourself to others too much, but like think of what you want to be or where you want to be in the future, and have that be like your goal and your main thing, your focus.
So you did say a keyword. It's the one that's kind of important to me, and I've talked about it in other arenas and other realms. I feel like you guys are very secure with yourself, so maybe it doesn't impact you, or maybe it does. That I don't want to make any assumptions, but imposter syndrome, and for those people who, you know, that might be the first time that they've heard that terminology, imposter syndrome is basically feeling like you are not equipped, or the fear of, you know, that you'll be found out as not being as smart, as confident, as educated as you thought you were, right? And so there's a lot of ways that people define it. I know a lot of people out here, some people and will disagree that imposter syndrome is not a real thing. According to, you know, psychology, Board of Psychology, it's real, but a lot of times it can be pretty controversial, right? One of the examples for me having faced imposter syndrome was, I shy away from taking opportunities sometimes when I feel like I'm not ready, versus, getting an opportunity and being like, oh yeah, heck yeah, I'm going to take that and I'll figure it out. Right. Because I'm nervous that like people will find out that they gave me the role. I took the role and then I don't do a good job. And then they're like, oh, she wasn't ready for it. Right. And so a lot of times I've had that happen to me in my past where I was like, I don't know if I'm really interested in taking that role. Have you ever had experiences with imposter syndrome?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like in my team where I work, I feel like that from time to time, but the way that I overcome it is to just look at my successes.
Yeah.
Like, I've been able to complete things before and I've done it successfully, so I shouldn't feel like I'm fine. Like, I
Right.
should get out of that headspace, like, I'm doing a good job. And so, yeah, that's how I overcome imposter syndrome.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. What about you? Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
Yes, definitely. Especially with like the internship application process. There was a moment when I was like, should I be here? Like, am I doing something wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Am I not doing enough? Like, there must be something lacking kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know if this was it for me. Like, I just felt kind of lost and a little scared of the path I chose. But I think that's just like one part of the journey. And so I tried not to dwell on it and like hold me back.
Yeah.
So just, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I think having mentors helped too, because
Yeah.
I had you to talk to.
Yeah.
And like, you definitely helped calm me down, especially for interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting because like I've been in my career for 20 years. And so there are always those moments where doubt creeps in, where you're comparing yourself to either other people or other situations. And like you said, revisiting, like, I'm here for a reason, right? I didn't just luck into something, right? And revisiting what you bring to the table, the things that you know that you come with, and then also your willingness to work to close out any of those gaps or deficiencies is like, you're going to work hard. If something gets presented to you that you have no idea what to do, you're going to ask folks, you're going to reach out, you're going to look for support. And it's like, remembering that about yourself, remembering your drive and your determination, even if you are encountered with something you're not familiar with, definitely helps. But, imposter syndrome is one of those things I think we'll work on for the rest of our lives, right? Every arena we get into will be a new arena. And then you've got to overcome those fears or doubts, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's actually a really meaningful message to end today's conversation with, because it's, confidence in yourself, building your confidence, remembering who you are, remembering what you bring to the table, and remembering how resourceful you are so that you can kind of overcome any obstacle that's put in front of you, right? Is the way that you can kind of combat that and restore your confidence, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies. This was amazing. I think that it's going to be very meaningful and helpful to the folks that are going to watch this episode, and inspirational, right? I know that you feel like you're new in the beginning of your journeys, but, you were in some of these people's shoes, years ago, and navigating, the same kind of pressures and figuring out like, well, if I make a choice, is it going to be the right one, right? Yeah. What if I choose this major and it ends up not going the way that I want it to, right? Everybody that's going to watch these are going to have the same conversations and kind of same questions. And I think this will be helpful and meaningful for them. So I appreciate you guys joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. This was another inspirational, impactful episode, in my opinion, for anyone that's navigating their journey in the technology field. Be sure to, again, like, subscribe. Also drop comments below if anything that these ladies said, kind of resonate with you, and ask questions, right? There's a lot of content that we've included in here about, choosing a major, about the CWIT program that's available at UMBC. So absolutely feel free to ask questions, comments, and we will get back to you with our answers and our thoughts. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.